he was talking about 24 weeks. So Paul was simply saying, look, actually, if this development's going to take longer, it means that my commitments are going to be bigger, because I need to be on site more often. So therefore, the fee is going to have to be increased on what I originally said.
I just wonder if we could cut back on that, because that would be the £3,000 that we're already over, wouldn't it?
I mean, that is something that we could look at doing. That was something I would imagine would come to the buildings working group. There are pros and cons. If we cut back on it, we'll have less supervision by the architect, which means, as we've always said, the architect, if everything goes swimmingly, he gets a very good fee. If things are problematic, he gets to earn his money. So he would be project managing within that sum. I'm sure we could reduce the hours that we ask him to project manage, but that may not be an overall saving if things start to go wrong and we need someone to be on the ball project managing it.
Because for that, how many hours is he kind of guaranteeing, or how many days is he going to be here?
I think he's talking about something like about 3 hours a day for 3 days a week or something of that order.
Okay, so he's not here every day,
No,
so we could cut it back and only have him here 2 days a week. I was just wondering if that figure could be slashed, because if we were back to the £8,000, I said that would be the £3,000 that we're already over on that, so at least that would bring that figure back. And the other thing I was going to say is when we were talking about, Andy was just saying about overruns and percentage overruns in general terms on a project like this, were we not quoted that figure, and that's watertight and it can't overrun for the contractor?
It's a fixed price contract. Okay,
Yeah.
there will be no provision for variation in costs, because you will strike out that clause in the JCT agreement. He will bring his job in on price, because what he'll do, the moment he gets his order, he will place orders for his materials immediately.
So it can't go over that price?
No, not unless there is a legitimate variation to what was originally specified. So in other words, if he were to do the foundations and find he couldn't do something and he needed greater reinforcement in the foundations,
Right.
or he had to reroute his waste pipes for various reasons, that would be a legitimate variation,
Right.
okay? Which the architect would give an instruction and he would price it, and then it would be accepted and included in
So
our
that would be like an emergency, it wouldn't be a regular thing like bricks has gone up this week?
No.
Okay.
It is fixed price from that point of view.
Okay. So the section 14 stuff can't go up either, that is set at that 21,000?
I mean, basically what has been said to the shop is that they are responsible for the section 14 expenditure, so they have to deliver that.
Even if it goes over the 21,000?
No, it
So it won't.
sorry,
It won't. That's what I'm just trying to get everything
Yeah.
totally clear. So that's set.
Ashley's gone back and he's revisited the section 14 to make sure the figures are correct, and and those figures are correct. Okay, and that also was very, very close, within a few pounds of what our original quantity surveyor also gave us a figure on. So we know that Ashley's section 14 and the quantity surveyor's report are in tandem. They're very similar.
Andy?
Just clarifying on the overrun. An overrun is a force majeure. It's something that they can't foresee.
Yeah.
It's something that happens, and in all contracts they carry that, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
And also, they always have the opportunity of walking off site if they can't make it that bad, which is why we build a contingency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Lembers, what do you want to do?
Well, as I say, sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I?
Please do.
We've all expressed outside this meeting our concerns in various ways. We have signed an agreement that puts the pressure on the shop to deliver under the Section 14, but I don't have much comfort with it. The accounts that I've seen are the first ones I've seen, and Owen very kindly asked them. We've had no dialogue with the shop at all, really, no firm dialogue. The shop committee haven't had any in-depth meetings with the shop to see how they're getting on in terms of volunteers, what they're up to. We don't know. We've just got to take it as we see it. You've already seen that our budget is not good, and it's going to be very, very tight. And I, for one, will not see our budget slashed by the fact that this job runs over. So if it does go over for any reason, we do have a problem. But I think as long as we've aired that and we're all comfortable with where we are, I'm okay. But the responsibility for managing the cash on this is down to Owen. You know,
well, I think it's fair. Owen is acting on our behalf, so Owen is responsible to this council.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it to be implied that it's all Owen's fault if it goes wrong, or it's all Owen's success if it goes right. So
he has yes, our authority, and will come back to us, I hope, regularly as to how the cash flow is going. But
that is going to be the most challenging thing of all the financials that I'm going to have to produce is a cash flow budget that makes sense. Because, you know, we don't normally do cash flow budgets on the council. It's not something we do regularly. I've done cash flow in a commercial environment, but we're talking about something quite different here.
Same principle.
Same principle, but, you know, it's going to take quite a lot of working out to make sure that is accurate and
The
correct.
bookkeeping on this is going to be tight.
It is
going to be
it
very
is,
tight.
it is going to be, and you know.
my only request is that when you write the contract for 220,000 less Section 14 with the builder, and you have and there is another contract between the shop and the builder for his cost, then we are out of it then. That's probably the best way of securing our position on this, so we don't have any responsibility for it whatsoever. And why you've been advised that, it's beyond me.
We've got two sources of advice. We've got a solicitor and we've got an architect. Now, bearing in mind, as far as I'm concerned, you know, this is all new stuff. I've had to rely on professional people. It's a bit like the VAT advice, you know. I didn't really know how that was going to work. We took advice on it. We haven't had any advice which tells us that this is the incorrect way forward. And I accept your point, Colin, and you know, I value your experience in this. But we have not had. I'll be honest. I mean, there is some merit in what was suggested about the £26,000 being secured in some way and in a form of that. I can see that as a separate issue to whether we invoice the builder secondly. Although they are related, of course, because if you do one, you solve the other one.
But to be honest, I mean, neither of those two things have been part of the discussions or part of the agreement that we've made.
Well, give us credit for the fact that we are thinking this through, notwithstanding the implications that you pointed out at revisiting things and all the regulatory things surrounding that. We are human beings, we are councillors, we think about what we're doing, Bob, and we didn't want to be railroaded into something like
I'm just going to struggle slightly with that comment. I don't think anyone can claim that the 2 years that we've been discussing this, people have been railroaded. And to be honest, I took offence when the shop had certain people saying we were railroading them, and I don't think we've railroaded them, and I don't think we're railroading members. I think it is difficult. We are trying to bring together two organisations to deliver a community facility for the village and an asset for this parish council. And that's what we're ultimately going to end up with if this thing goes ahead. We will end up with the parish council having a proper set of toilets that are disabled friendly, that also has a physical asset attached to it, which is going to be the shop, which then is part of the community facility, which is delivering that community benefit of the shop and the social side that comes with that, which was always the project that I thought we started out on 2 years ago. But to say that somehow we're railroading, I think we have taken, it feels like, an eternity to get to where we are. I don't think there has been anything being rammed through, but it is just difficult when we get to a point where we think we've got a decision, only to then, at that point, members start to raise other doubts that...
Whoa. No, exceptions. Nobody's raising new doubts or bringing this into... We've always had, from the very beginning of this project, which I was party to, we've always had concerns about the information we're getting from the shop management team. We've always had concerns about that. You know, when we asked for a set of accounts, it took us nearly a year to see a set, and they weren't a set of accounts, they were a set of cash flow statements. So that's an unfair statement. The statement is now, we're about to sign this council over to a £200,000 project, and there's a £26,000 contribution to be made, which we have no security on, apart from the shake of the head and two people stand up, one saying they're going to raise £64,000, £60,000 in a charity run. Really? If they can do that, they can then actually build the thing themselves. Last time they did it, they raised £5,000 and then another £2,000 contribution. And the second piece to that is the other one stood up and said, yeah, we can do it as long as we don't put any fixtures and any modern fixtures in it. So you go, okay, so you have got the cash, but it's in a hard position, and you're going to go out and cash flow. We need to see that, because we're about to sign off to 160,000 plus 48,000 pounds worth of our own money, and you need to show us you've got that 26,000. That's all that's being said. That's all that's being asked. That does not run contrary to the signing of the agreements and the heads of the agreement, because we had a shop team who was supposed to be working with the shop team. They should be seeing their accounts and going to their meetings. I understand they've been to one meeting. The second meeting was cancelled. So this council has absolutely no vision of what's going on in that shop. And yet we're going to commit £48,000 of our reserves and £160,000 loan to a project that we have no insight on. That is a risk. And all we're saying is, let's mitigate the risk. You would not do this with your own funds. You wouldn't. Would you? It's madness. Somebody's on the shake of a hand, somebody's going to give us 26 grand. Because they're in a limited company. If they don't pay it, there is no obligation to them. But there is an obligation on us. Ask them to put it into a fund. Ask them to expose it to us so that we can use it. They can use it, but it needs to be exposed to us. That's all the council members are asking.
Well, that's the decision that you as members have to make.
If I could just answer that about the meeting, the shop meeting that we had. We've had one meeting with the shop, and they wouldn't commit to anything until they'd seen the lease, and we had to go back and get the lease, and they wanted the lease before anything was taken forward, and that's why there was no further information, and the second meeting was cancelled because we didn't have the lease.
And I think that's an
and we
alarm
didn't
bell.
have the information that they wanted, and I think you'll back me up to you that we're at the meeting.
So let me get this right. Our tenant is going to dictate to us, that's taking out the loan, how we run this enterprise.
That is the house meeting.
That's got to be an alarm, but for goodness sake.
And again, it's not. I'm not part of that working group, but ultimately that working group is on the agenda every meeting here. And if we were unhappy, why are we not raising that at every meeting that we've had for the last X number of months?
That's something you need to take up with the working group. And I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is what we're saying is whether it's the working group's fault or somebody else's fault is a discussion we can have separately. The fact of the matter is you do not make a decision because on that basis of because we didn't ask the question, let's just ignore the question. You can't do that. The question's been asked. have you got the £26,000? Can we see it? Can we witness it? The shop team who are party to that conversation can't say they've seen it, haven't seen it, we're not given it, exposure to it. Therefore, we as a council cannot believe that we're going to be paid that money until we have evidence.
But the evidence, as I understand it from Colin tonight, is the accounts have been supplied and there is more than £26,000 in their reserves.
That's not evidence that they can pay the 26,000. If they take the 26,000 out, they won't have, if you look at the accounts, they won't have operating cash.
Well,
Colin.
they'll have about 8,000 working
Exactly.
cash if they place this money. Well, they cannot spend the £26,000 that they've got anyway because they know it's committed. But so they've only got £8,000 whether they pay it over or not. They've only got £8,000 cash.
It is, and they know it's committed, but if they don't pay it, they can spend it. If they have to go and buy a new freezer or a new fridge today, they'll eat into that 26,000.
But
And that's our money.
That comes down to and I know it's not legally binding, but that does come down to the commitment that they have made in public to this authority, to us, that they will pay those elements. We also know that that money is not necessarily going to be drawn down until the back end of this project because they'll be doing their fit out after we've built the fabric of the building. So there is time between now and then. We know from what they said to us at the last meeting that they are going to be looking at potentially going out for further funding in terms of the shareholders, but also fundraising and in terms of grant applications that we know that they're making because they've again raised that with us for parts of the project.
So what stops them giving us a legal document very quickly, and it doesn't take weeks, it just takes one solicitor at the very best, give us a legal document, or put it into an account, a shared account, or do something with it and isolate that fund for us. What stops them doing it?
I mean, ultimately, as I say, that's a decision for members to make. It, in effect, is saying we as a council don't have faith or trust in the document that they signed this time round because you're saying we don't think they're going to deliver it because we can't guarantee it.
We're saying as a legal entity, we should be ensuring that we mitigate against risk.
And that's, if members decide that's the decision they want to take and they want to go through that process, then you can make that decision tonight. But as I say, it may have more of an impact on the project than you expect it will, because your faith in the legal profession to turn things around and get everything tied up is probably greater than mine in the scale that we're working. But that's a decision you as members have got to make tonight, because we can't do this every meeting.
Okay, that's a fair comment.
We're not seeking to do it every meeting, Bob. We're just seeking to protect our position on the council, to know that our funding is secure, and it's one area that we have a bit of concern about. That's the bottom line. So other members have been pretty quiet. I'm not sure where they are, but is it your wish that we go back to the shop as a result of our discussions to say we would like you to deposit the sum of £26,000 with your lawyers in good faith, so that we know that we are protected on this project? That's all. We're not saying the document we signed last week is an issue. We know it's not good. It's if you want to do that. If you don't, then leave it exactly as it is, and we're just going to have to run with it. But at least you are aware now, as a result of this conversation, what the issues are.
Can we ask the question then? Okay, worst case scenario, we're at the end of the build, the 26,000 is payable, and some unforeseen thing happens and the shop don't pay it. Where do we actually stand?
We're legally responsible.
Right, so
Because
what
we signed the
would we do if the worst happens? How would we deal with it? That's the question I think we need to ask.
Well, that's the point of the conversation, I think, is very succinctly put.
Yes.
If that's the scenario happens, we're going to have to take money out of the rest of our.
But have we actually got it? Is it physically
We've
there?
got some of it, and we would just have to stop doing projects, which is why.
If worst came to the worst, then we have other reserve funds that we would have to make use of, and then put back at a later date.
Right. So we'd pay it, but we clean ourselves out,
Yes.
and then have to find something else to do with the shop.
And that's on the supposition that it all goes to the point where the shop make no
yeah.
contribution whatsoever.
So we have to ask that question to answer these questions to say, right, where would we be if it doesn't?
And as we said at the last meeting, it's that balance and risk that members have to assess. Whether you think the risk that is being put forward of the shop reneging on doing their element is such a significant risk that puts us into that position. I think some members feel there is a real risk that has happened. I think others
That's
have less of a
not.
feeling.
No, that's not fair, Bob. What's been said is you mitigate, not that there's a real risk. You mitigate against the possibility of the risk, and that's just good business practice.
I have to just point out, and perhaps Bob won't be very keen on what I'm going to say, but basically in terms of due diligence, I think if we were to ask the auditors this matter, they would say, what measures have you taken
Yes.
to protect the council's funds? Now, I have to be honest with you on that. I think that's a question they're likely and quite legitimately going to ask us.
Rightly so.
What steps have you taken as a council? We went through the risk document earlier on, all the things that the council can be at risk from, right down to the sort of authorisation of banks. And if the scenario that you paint, Andy, did happen, for a whole variety of reasons,
Yep.
nothing to do with trust, I think for a whole variety of reasons, then that's the first question the auditors would ask us. What did you do as a council to protect yourself during that particular period of time? You know, and I have to be honest with you, that's what they would ask. And I'm telling you that because I might have to answer that question. I hope I don't, and I'm sure I won't have to. But I might, at some point, I might have to answer it.
I completely agree. Look, this isn't about whether we're against the shop, or against the people, or against the management. This is about mitigation of risk. And if you don't mitigate risk, and it does happen, you've only got yourselves to blame. And mitigation is a good thing.
But it's just important that members understand all the not implications, but all the different scenarios within this problem. Because it would be unfair of you to be expected to vote on anything that you didn't feel comfortable with as a council. And that's all I want to say, really.
And I'm looking for a recommendation. James?
So should we propose that we ask the shop for the £26,000, it goes somewhere secure and we know it's there, and then we can continue?
That's something we can do. As I say, if we do, then we do need to go through, I believe, suspension of standing orders so that we can revisit the agreement that we signed at the last meeting, because the terms of that agreement are being changed.
Why were they being changed?
What
term is being changed? You've thrown this in twice. I've read it twice. I can't see a change.
Because we have signed up to an agreement based on the terms of that agreement as it stands. If
Okay,
you are
so
now
again,
amending
I'm
that,
asking the question specific. You're saying we're going to have to amend it.
Yeah.
Which bit do we need to amend? It says in there very clearly that they're going to make 26,000.
Yeah.
Okay. We're
But
now saying it
now-
doesn't put any time frame on it.
and you're now putting a subject to them putting the money somewhere else in the meantime.
We're
That is
saying
an- that is an addition.
We're saying we want proof of it. We'll give them evidence. We'll give them opportunities.
but
It doesn't say in there in that agreement any date. So that means that we might never see it as soon as we want, or we can put a date on it. So it needs amended anyway.
What it says in that agreement is that they will pay direct.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't give a time frame. So they may pay direct. They could pay in 2026. We've got on the heads of that agreement. So on that agreement and coming in front of auditors, if should we have to do it, first thing we can say is there's no date frame. Why is there no date frame? So all we're doing on that is putting a date frame in it. That's all we've done. That's not an amendment.
Well, of course, you are updating and changing that agreement. So whether you're clarifying it or making it better because it was wrong in the first place, you are still making an amendment to that
Well, then
agreement.
in that case, we need to do it anyway.
Okay, in which case that's the resolution that you will need to put forward and the council will need to vote on.
Okay, I'll put that forward.
So you're moving the standing order should be suspended.
No,
So that
I'm
we can
putting forward,
reopen.
no, I'm putting forward that the council wants to see evidence of the £26,000 payable to this institution.
I mean, personally, I think that is a change of what was agreed. If the clerk feels differently, then I'll take advice from the clerk.
You know, the honest truth is, I think you can look at it any way, different ways. I mean, at the end of the day, you can either say it's a separate item, which we're bringing forward at the next meeting, it's not part of the previous one, or it's a change to the previous one. You know, I think it's semantics at the end of the day.
I think so.
I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is protect the council's funds, and I just don't see what I can't see what's wrong with us taking action to protect the funds of this council. I'm sorry, but I just don't understand why.
If that's the advice, then I will, as chair,
I
take
think
the
we
advice
must,
of the clerk.
as much as I don't want to become involved in the pros and the cons of whatever we do, security of the council's funds is something I will obviously ultimately have to answer for. This is why I'm taking the view that I'm taking, because I'm going to be responsible for it. The council overall is going to be responsible for it.
The council is responsible.
I'm going to answer for it.
As councillors, we're responsible to the community. If God forbid anything happened to the shop and we lost that £26,000, they've got every right to ask us why we allowed it to happen.
The point is, the question is, are the council asking a lot of questions about something for which the shop probably would have no problem?
I agree.
You know, are we arguing about something that actually they've not been asked, they've not been approached?
I think we can talk around this all night. I think you've given advice, that's fine, I will accept that advice. If members wish to move that resolution. So as I understand it, Andy, you are putting forward that we should be requesting that the shop has to put that sum of money somewhere. No, I'll let you do the wording.
I was going to go with your wording. I thought it was very good. I think what the resolution has to be along that the council needs to be able to see that the funds are available and secured against the, what do we call it, section 14.
So how is that achieved?
That's up to them. They can put it wherever they want to do
Well, no,
it.
because we're making the demand of them.
It's
So
has to
Okay.
be placed with their lawyers or
Place-
Their lawyers,
their
fine.
lawyers.
Yeah, place. Okay, let's add that to the thing.
Yeah.
If they can place that sum of funds with their lawyers, then and that's what we'd like to see.
is that seconded?
With the proviso that it is for that purpose only.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to call that should be a named vote because I think it is a fundamental decision that we're making tonight. So I'll let the clerk organise the naming of the vote.
Right, so of that resolution that's been put forward, who supports, in other words, that resolution? I do. Colin? Andy? Malcolm? David? It's everybody apart from Robin Tracy.
So I'm going to see. So you're going to know
Bob,
those
can
for
I-
and against.
Can I say one against again? Bob, can
Two
I ask-
against.
Two against.
Two
I think,
against,
wasn't it?
two against, yeah.
Two. Can I ask a question? What's the difference? What makes a difference between a named
A
and
named
an
vote is that the clerk records the names of everyone who votes. Normally he just records that it's either a majority or a unanimous.
and why is there a difference?
Because
just-
any
just from the
councillor can
culture.
ask for a named vote on any vote so that they're recorded as to who's voted in which way.
Okay.
It's up to you at any time during any meeting, if you feel you want to request it's a named vote, and that's supported, then you can do so.
Okay. Thank you.
For all sorts of variety of reasons, which I won't go into, but there are lots of reasons behind it. You know,
No, that's
Okay. Public Work Loan Board sign-off conditions, loan sign-off resolutions.
Cheers, Roger.
Sorry.
Public Works Land Board, yes, we've got the document, it's all ready to go. The Public Works Land Board are aware of our application and they're just waiting for us to submit it. Basically, it's been signed by Bob, it's been signed by me, and we've actually asked for a 40,000 drawdown over 4 periods, so that reduces our interest rates. So we're talking about April, May, July and August, you're losing 1 month out. £40,000 coming down each of those 4 periods. And whatever interest rate is current at the time that we draw down. So in other words, if we draw down at 5.28 at the moment, which is the current rate, in say the next drawdown it might be 5.09, for example. So therefore the payments on that part of it will be less. So if you look at the overall loan for the 12 months, it will be a variable, but it'll all equal one sum, but it'll be a variable rate. Yeah.
Once we, you say yourself and Bob have signed, once we submit that,
Yes.
are we committed to take that loan?
We are, but if we decided at some point that we weren't going to take it for any reason, which I can't imagine what that reason would be, but if we did, then we simply pay them back that fund with any interest that we've accrued during that time. So say we took 40,000 and 2 weeks later we sent 40,000 back, they would charge us 40,000 at the rate that we borrowed it at.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically what would happen.
Thank you.
Any update on National Grid?
National Grid, as you know, are starting their work on the 2nd of April, which is, I believe, Monday, I think, 2nd of April. And they will take approximately 5 days. They will cut off the car park during that time, but give us access to the green and the shop during that working period. So by the time we get to the 9th of April, a week later, it will be done and dusted. They will be out of the way and finished with all the work done. And the toilet block will then be able to
The tree
demolish.
organised for that time?
Hmm?
Is the tree organised for
No.
that time?
So the tree surgeon that we've engaged has, as you saw tonight, got the planning application in for the tree work. He will be liaising with National Grid as to whenever he can get on there. It won't necessarily be in conjunction with the works.
Yeah.
If it can be, great. If not,
I mean, it's like getting blood out of a stone trying to get National Grid to give us a date. I mean, it's incredible, really.
okay. Play equipment refurb and GB Sports report. Members have circulated the GB Sports report, I believe, which shows green risk, low risk on all the equipment. There are a few items of maintenance that have been highlighted that we should be looking at in due course, but none of the items has as yet been condemned. They are all showing as low risk. In terms of the play equipment painting, I think, in light of the discussions we've had tonight, we can deal with that on another occasion. Any other questions on play equipment? Okay, annual meeting.
There was a proposal from Melina about an air ambulance presentation, which in fact she did request for this meeting, but because we had 2 other presentations we decided it was probably too much in one meeting. So I suggested that perhaps they could come along to our annual meeting and talk to the whole village rather than just the council. They charge £50 for their opportunity to come and talk to us. And it's a matter for you whether you feel that that's worth us doing that. It was a bit of a curious thing. We give them £2.50 and then we pay them £50 back, which is a strange thing, really. But anyway, so that's it. And then Stuart Nichols will probably come along if we ask him to talk about the ANPR and what the implications are of all of that. Answer any questions from the public. A shop team update. That's from the actual shop itself, perhaps giving us an update on where they are as a shop, and then the council giving an update on the buildings project. So that's what I've sort of put together, bearing in mind the previous conversation we've had, unless you feel strongly about anything else, really. So we have an air ambulance presentation, Nichols presentation, group from the shop to talk about how the shop's doing and any news items relating to that, and then the buildings group will give an update.
I think it would be useful to have a quick update on what we're doing about flooding, and also to advise, because someone made the comment to me that their house was potentially going to be flooded because of all the water that flows down from Church Lane out down towards Fox and the Red Cow. Well, of course, no water flows down there, and I think it would be interesting to tell people what we're seeking to do, or what we did do during the flooding, and why, why the importance of that Church Lane job was so important for the village and what we're doing.
So who would you suggest to
That's Councillor Hart.
Thank you.
Did you not notice David sitting in his seat there?
Would it not be a good idea, no disrespect to the air ambulance, but because they're going to cost, and it's going to be more time, and it's like I said, people probably will come with flooding questions, to let David do the talk on flooding instead of their air ambulance, or nobody wants to hear me talking all the time, like you keep saying.
I don't think it'll take too long, to be honest.
No, he doesn't say much, you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we stick
So
with
we're
that
adding
flood
flood.
action group.
And the order, you're not particularly fussed about order, I mean, I suspect the air ambulance probably ought to be first, because they probably want to get
We
away.
put on last and ask them to buy the beer afterwards, didn't we? And get £50 back.
That's a good idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's that.
We'll spoof for it.
So the next item is the request by the parish hall for use of the village green. Hold up, before you do that, I need to leave the room because obviously as a trustee of the hall, this could infect their income. So I'm sorry Tracy, but you're in the hot seat.
Your chair, I've got the information, don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
A request from the parish hall, at our parish council meeting, parish hall committee meeting, the fundraising events 2024-25 were discussed, which include the fete and music on the green. The committee would like to ask the parish council to grant permission for these events to take place on the village green, 8th of June and 20th of July, and the 14th of June and the 19th of July 2025. So in other words, 2 days for 24, 2 days for 25. And they just need our resolution to approve.
Yeah, go for it.
Are we in agreement? That's, yeah.
Okay? We're really happy with that?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's a side question, we're allowed to charge them because they charge us for this room.
Good point.
Actually, that's what we could offset it against these costs.
I wouldn't-
We're looking at.
I
We're looking at.
wouldn't necessarily raise that.
Yeah.
Why not?
Good luck with that one, Andy.
No, I'll leave that one.
We'll let Owen
So I'll
say.
give Tracy the vote on that one.
Okay, well, come back then.
Yeah. I can excuse myself.
Okay.
Right, okay. Next item is to talk about change of a date for the council meetings.
Well, yes, AD actually raised this with me and said, could you put it on the agenda? And then, of course, he wasn't able to turn up the meeting, so it's rather unfortunate in a way. So I suspect you wanted to delay it.
Okay.
I don't know, I think it was to do with the fact that AD is involved with the RLI on Wednesdays, and he feels that he's missing too many of these meetings, and therefore, if there was a possibility of changing, he would quite like to change it. But I did point out to him that it's not just as simple as just changing the date, because it's got to fit in with quite a lot of other things, not least of which was the hall availability, of course. But, something we can bring up again at another meeting, I'm sure.
Okay.
That's it.
If we go to the matters report, and I'll start with Owen.
Can I just say something
Yeah.
back on that thing that you had up there
Yes.
before? When we were talking about the project management, is it a thing to go back to him and say that, or is that this not the meeting to discuss that, to cut the costs of it?
I think that would certainly be something the buildings working group would have.
Oh, okay, so that's not what we need to, yeah. Okay.
He did come up with a reasoned calculated approach,
Yes.
how he had arrived at those figures. So
Yes, I
it
was just
wasn't a figure
thinking that,
just jumped.
no, I was just thinking that because it's quite a high figure, if he cut down his time slightly, maybe we could just carve that budget down a bit, pare it back a bit, and just have a little bit more.
Yeah, well, he's got two responsibilities under the contract. One, he's going to monitor what the builder actually does and have site meetings. And the second thing is he's going to go through a process where he values the work that the builder's done. He'll then issue what they call an architect certificate, which then he will produce to Owen in order to get him paid.
I was just
So
thinking, because that's...
he'll be doing different things.
Yeah, I was just thinking because that was £3,000 obviously more than we were originally told, and I was just wondering if we could pare it back a bit just to try and preserve some funds, that was all.
I mean, I'm sure we can talk to him, I'm sure.
It was just a thought, really,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah. I mean, if you could pair up £1,000, it'd be something.
Well, yeah.
Okay, reports. Owen?
Nothing, mate.
No.
Andy?
Oh, hang on, no, sorry, those tools that I just came up with earlier.
Yes, I've got that.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Tracy? David?
No.
Colin?
ANPR.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay. I've just got one thing which I'm going to say. To be honest, at the last meeting, obviously I was instructed by this council to sign the agreement that we've been discussing earlier tonight, and did that in good faith after we'd had a full debate. In all honesty, I don't believe that I can continue to represent this council based on the decisions that we've made this evening. So I shall be standing down at the end of this meeting as chairman. I will continue as a member of this council and will continue to fight for the things that I think are wanted by the village. But I think it will be up to somebody else to be the spokesman for this group, and they will obviously take the thing forward, and hopefully we can have a successful ending. But I just do not think it is appropriate for me to continue as chair, so I will be standing down.
I think that's totally inappropriate.
No, it is not.
A coward's way out.
That's up to you, Colin. The meeting is closed.
Fine.